two races in Slaton, mayor and their precinct 4, following the death of their mayor and the council member, just almost literally days apart. And so this election will select a new mayor, select a new council member in their precinct 4. There were 5 candidates for mayor.
The Slaton mayoral race is officially headed for a runoff as election results come in too close to call who will be the next city leader. Good evening and thanks so much for choosing KLBK News. I'm Terry Furman. No answer for the mayor there in Slaton, but the city was able to vote in Charlie C. Haynes Jr. as the new city commissioner. Results on the proposed statewide constitutional amendments are coming in from counties across the state. KLBK's Steffi Lee reports from the Capitol with the latest updates.
Good evening, Terry. Yeah, in a state that already doesn't have a statewide income tax, the results that came in tonight show that Texas voters support making it harder for the state to enact an income tax in the future. Now, under Prop 4, it requires support from 2/3 of both chambers of the legislature in order for Texas to implement an income tax. And the state has to get voter approval. Now, one of the groups opposed to Prop 4 was the Texas State Teachers Association. That's because the current Constitution sets aside 2/3 of any funds collected to help reduce property taxes and the rest to fund education. But going back and changing the Constitution again after Prop 4 is still a possibility.
It's not something that could never happen. It's just going to raise that threshold. So in order for it to change again, it would have to go before the voters. So the voters would have a say as to whether or not they ever wanted to overturn and actually allow for an income tax in the state.
The results that came in tonight also show that Texas voters support renewing funding for the Cancer Research Prevention Institute of Texas, and they also want to ensure that the funds collected from the sporting goods sales tax help support state park maintenance. There were 10 constitutional amendments on the ballot this year. We have that updated coverage online as well. Reporting from the Capitol, Steffi Lee, KLBK News.
Thank you, Steffi. Now here's a look at some of the other items on the ballot today. Prop 1 out of 10 is the only one that did not pass. It's permitting a person to hold more than one office as a municipal judge at the same time. Prop 2, the Texas Water Development Board issuing bonds to fund for water in lower income places, that passed. Proposition 3 would allow property tax exemptions for disaster areas. Prop 5 would earmark all revenue from sporting goods sales to State Parks and Wildlife Department as intended. That passed. Prop 6 would allow legislature to double the max amount of bonds it can issue on behalf of cancer prevention of Texas to $6 billion. Proposition 7 would allow General Land Office, State Board of Education, both to double the amount of revenue they can provide available to school funds each year. Also, Prop 8 passing, creating a flood infrastructure fund that the TWDB could use to finance projects following a disaster. Prop 9 would allow legislature to create a property tax exemption for precious metals in state depositories. And Proposition 10 would allow for former handlers or qualified caretakers to adopt the retired animals. Also on the ballots tonight were some school bonds. Ropes ISD had a bond election for $5.8 million to go to the building. It would add more classrooms and cafeteria space, and it would increase the tax rate to 1.5584 per $100 valuation. Plainview ISD, their $76 million bond to make adjustments to existing facilities. This passed by 60% this evening. And Wilson ISD had a $7.66 million bond to pay for construction and equipping buildings and would allow for the purchase of more buses for the district. Of course, we will have more of those results for you on our website, everythinglubbock.com. The pastor at First Baptist Church of Sutherland Springs is now running for state senate. Political reporter Julie Fine sat down with the pastor, who explained why he decided to run for office.
There is a new First Baptist Church of Sutherland Springs. 2 years later, weathered memorials dot the side of the old sanctuary. But the congregation is pushing on.
We're just moving forward and we're growing. Rather than just existing, we're living.
Pastor Frank Pomeroy, who lost his daughter Annabelle, is pushing forward too, in a different direction, the political arena. And he was propelled to do it because of other mass shootings.
But when I saw a way I felt like those people were treated in El Paso and then Midland, Odessa, and Dayton, Ohio, those were the ones that really grabbed my attention. I surrounded myself with people of prayer. I felt like God was leading me into this at that point. Still didn't want to go, and I just felt like this is what I'm supposed to do now.
Pomeroy feels in Sutherland Springs the focus was on the people.
We chose to focus on what's best for the community. Let's lock arms, let's heal.
And in other mass shootings, he feels it's been on politics and the Second Amendment. Pomeroy pointed specifically to former presidential candidate Beto O'Rourke after the shootings in his hometown of El Paso.
He just immediately took it as, okay, because of this shooting thing, we're going to have to go and take everyone's firearms away from them. That had nothing to do with these people. Whether that opinion is valid or not doesn't change. Those first 2 weeks shouldn't have been about politics to me.
Pomeroy remains a strong Second Amendment proponent.
No, it didn't change my thinking at all on Second Amendment rights. I am glad that we had what's kind of notoriously been titled the good guy with the gun to stop the shooting before it got worse.
He will have the next year to expand on all of his positions in depth in an uphill battle against Senator Judah Zaffirini, who has been in the legislature more than 30 years.
Win, lose, or draw, I'm doing this to draw attention back to the people rather than just the re-election process.
A federal judge ordered a Seminole man to remain in custody for a sex crime involving a minor. The mother of the victim told Lubbock police that her child told her that 55-year-old Michael Billups had sexually assaulted him on multiple occasions. From there, federal prosecutors charged Billups with transportation of a minor with the intent to engage in criminal sexual activity. Billups remains booked in the Lubbock County Detention Center. A trial date has not been listed yet in court records. And 33-year-old Richard Montrell Wilson accepted a plea deal for distribution of cocaine base and using a firearm to further a drug crime. On that firearm charge, he faces no more than life in prison. And a pediatric nurse practitioner with UMC was arrested last Wednesday and has been charged with 2 counts of improper photography in a bathroom. 30-year-old Zachary Redding was placed on paid administrative leave after his arrest. As of today, according to the Texas Board of Nursing website, Redding is still a certified registered nurse, and as of today, there was no disciplinary action pending against him, although he is being held at the Lubbock County Detention Center under a $20,000 bond. Of course, we will continue to update all of this information on our website, everythinglubbock.com. Today, the Lubbock Police Department releasing video of a crash involving a police officer. The head-on collision occurred on Sunday around 6:30, as you see it right there. The officer was traveling northbound on University when another vehicle traveling southbound failed to yield the right-of-way to the officer while turning onto the Loop 289 access road. At the time of the accident, the officer was going 58 miles an hour and had both lights and sirens on. Thankfully, no injuries were reported for this wreck. And it was a year ago that the city brought in consultants to figure out how to expand the Lubbock Memorial Civic Center, and they're continuing to do so. The city is seeking proposals from several consultants to provide concepts and cost estimates for the potential expansion of the Civic Center. The concept needs to tie in physically to the planned headquarters hotel and new parking garage. Mayor Pope says the goal is to attract regional and national conferences and conventions, ultimately bringing more people here to the hub city. And they're looking to work with Chapman Harvey Architects to develop these concepts. After a historic season last year, ending with a trip to the national championship game, Texas Tech basketball was back in town for their first game of the season. KLBK's Leah Doherty caught up with some Tech students and has more on their excitement for the new year.
Terry, Texas Tech basketball is 1-0 on the season and off to a pretty good start. Tonight, fans packed out the USA and say their team is just getting started. Basketball is back once again. It's a new season with new faces, fueled by the success of last year.
They are putting Texas Tech and Lubbock on the map.
From Tulsa
72-57
to Anaheim, and then Minneapolis. Where basketball went, fans followed.
Right here, what we have here in Lubbock is very special.
And if they weren't at the game, fans in town were shutting down the streets and gathering at watch parties.
The best 2 days of my life are when I got married, when I had my child, and this day right now. Going to the Final Four because of Chris Beard and the Red Raiders.
The buzz around town was like no other.
It felt like the roof was going to blow off this place.
Fans are eager for more.
It's a new team. I want to see the new players. So I'm really excited. Love Coach Beard. And we're going to go all the way to the final.
And Texas Tech will be home again this Saturday, hosting Bethune-Cookman at 7 p.m. Reporting from the USA, I'm Leah Doherty, KLBK News.
We do have some sad news for you today from the Gulf Coast. Abigail Arias has passed away. Now, we've brought you several stories detailing Abigail's battle with cancer, but mostly we talked about how much this sweet girl loved her local law enforcement. Abigail will be deeply missed by the many lives that she touched. TJ Parker takes a look back at a little girl with a big legacy.
A young life taken too soon.
What an amazing little girl.
But 7-year-old Abigail Arias' memory will continue to live on in the many lives she touched.
And it's amazing to see that she could lift so many spirits.
Freeport Police Chief Raymond Garavy got to know her well. Officer Abigail, as she was known by, became an honorary member of the Freeport Police Department, Officer 758.
I mean, she wasn't just a representative of law enforcement. She was a representative of all those fighting cancer.
During her fight with cancer, she touched the lives of people around the world. Today, in honor of Officer Abigail, law enforcement from all over escorted her to Stroud Funeral Home.
Agencies from all over the county represented it. We're thankful to every single one of them.
Well, we've been following Abigail and her family the whole time.
Staff at Campbell's Towing also honoring her life and her brave fight with cancer.
There's no amount of strength that could even compare to how strong she is. It's a very strong family.
As the community says goodbye to her, they say they'll remember to live like she did.
So take what she gave us, all the great memories, and follow her lead, and let's continue her vision, her journey, and her memory.